F1 comes with a lot of adrenaline rush, but it also comes with some heart-wrenching and emotional moments. Get your helmets as we go down the bumpy roads of the most emotional and heartbreaking moments in Formula 1, starting with what made the F1 community drown in its pool of tears, Ayrton Senna's death. Now, you can't deny it, you most likely felt it too. Ayrton Senna's death is one of the saddest moments in the history of Formula 1. It all happened back in 1994 at the San Marino GP, Imola. While on lap 7, Senna's car ran in a straight line off the track and struck an unprotected concrete barrier. The car hit the wall at a shallow angle, tearing off the right front wheel and nose cone and spinning to a halt. No one thought that would be the end of Senna, as servicemen already rushed to pull Senna out of the car for treatment. Not long after, they declared that Senna was no more, an announcement that warranted 3 days of national mourning declared by the Brazilian government. During his funeral, an estimated 3 million people lined the streets of Sao Paulo, the largest recorded gathering of mourners in modern times. Senna's death was not just the exit of an icon, but a turning point in the safety of Formula 1. Soon after the tragic accident, FIA implemented new safety measures, and the Grand Prix Drivers Association was re-established. After that though, it took several years before F1 mourned another driver, but you see, Antoine Hubert's death came with a series of events and shocked the entire world. If you know Formula 1 fans who can't forget the 2019 Belgian GP, it's most likely because of this incident. F1 just returned after a long summer break and everyone came back in a good mood. Charles Leclerc took pole as Ferrari showcased their strength and might after embarrassing first half of the season. However, what happened after qualifying is what shook the entire world for good. During the F2 feature race, Antoine Hubert, Juan Manuel Correa, and Giuliano Alessi crashed heavily, which resulted in an immediate red flag. The 3 drivers were transported to the hospital, and the crash video soon surfaced online. Trust me, you don't want to watch it. However, Hubert was soon declared dead, while the other 2 remained in the hospital for treatment. Of every F1 driver, Leclerc felt Hubert's death the most, because the 2 were childhood friends. He and Leclerc, Gasly, and Ocon almost grew up together, and competed on the track through various events. The next morning, F1 held a minute of silence as a mark of respect for Hubert. Leclerc passed the accident corner and felt numb there. He eventually won the race, his first victory in F1, and dedicated the win to Hubert. Talking about first victories, Nigel Mansell's first victory was really emotional. Nigel came from a middle-class family, and so he had a slow start to his racing career. He used his money to work his way up the ranks, moving to the Formula Ford series after his success in kart racing. However, his father was not in support of the decision, but Nigel didn't budge. While in Formula Ford, he had an accident that broke his neck, and he almost got paralyzed from it, but still after his recovery, he went straight back into racing. Soon, he was noticed by Lotus owner Colin Chapman, and yes, he got a deal, but during his GP debut in 19, fuel leak into the cockpit gave him first and second degree burns. Still, he fought through the pain and continued racing. Even with his unreliable car and his teammate Elio De Angelis consistently outperforming him, he didn't stop. In 5, he moved to Williams, and after 5 years of trying, he finally scored his first win at the European Grand Prix at Brands Hatch that same year. That was a sweet moment, just like when Sebastian Vettel claimed the championship title. You see, Vettel went to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix very much the underdog for the driver's title. All eyes were on Alonso and his teammate Mark Webber, while Vettel was 15 points behind the leader. Somehow, both Alonso and Webber were hampered by traffic mid-race and were unable to find a way through. They took the checkered flag in the 7th and 8th respectively. Vettel seized the opportunity with a stunning drive to snatch the championship, and surprisingly, he even won 3 more. I mean, you can't help but be happy for him. One other moment that got us emotional was Ruben Barrichello's first win. This happened at the 2000 German Grand Prix, but it wasn't as easy as I have said it. He started 18th at the Hockenheimring, and on top of that, he was put on an aggressive 2-stop strategy in a bid to help him move up the field. As luck would have it, a former Mercedes employee who had a grudge against the company ran into the cockpit on purpose. This allowed Rubens to complete one of his pit stops without losing a track position. He then made a brave move to stay on the track on slick tires despite a late race rain shower, and took an emotional win. This win was a special one because it was his first season for Ferrari. Can we also take a moment to remember Felipe Massa's 39-second title? It was the ending of the 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix, where Massa needed to win the race for Ferrari and to secure that position. Hamilton needed to be at the back. Massa started from pole position and stuck his Ferrari across the start-finish line first. Eventually, he won the race from Fernando Alonso, Kimi Raikkonen, and Sebastian Vettel, with Hamilton well back in the pack. behind several non-title contenders. On the slowing down lap, all Hamilton could say was, "I am speechless," while in park firming. Massa lifted his own visor and put a gloved hand over his eyes. He clambered out, facing the crowd, tapping his heart 3 or 4 times, bowed, and raised both hands with index fingers pointed up to the sky. How sweet. Reminds me of Michael Schumacher equaling Senna's record tally. It was his 41st victory, and a record that only Senna had. Since Senna died in 1994, Schumacher didn't talk about him, but on the day he broke the record, he was asked in the post-race conference about the significance of his win concerning Senna. Schumacher could not utter a statement. He simply bowed his head and broke down in tears. This prompted rival Mika Häkkinen to put a reassuring arm around his shoulders. According to the other drivers, no one had ever seen Michael this sad, and even after that, we had never seen such a public display of emotion from him. Usually, he talks about how he doesn't have interest in statistics, but clearly, the mention of Senna's name by the interview and the already hyped up circumstances pushed Michael through some kind of barrier. By all accounts, that was really emotional, but Schumacher wasn't done serving us those moments. Schumacher's final home run is another such thing. After 11 years of racing at Ferrari, where Schumacher won a record 5 consecutive world championship titles, Ferrari stated that he would retire after the 2 season. While some people could not believe it, Schumacher confirmed it himself. In the season finale, football legend Pelé gave him a trophy for his years of dedication. During the race, he started in 10th position and didn't have a great start, which saw him fall to 19th place, 70 seconds behind teammate and race leader Felipe Massa. However, in an eventful race, he recovered and secured 4th place and bid an emotional farewell to the sport. That perfectly sums up what was classified as heroic and utterly breathtaking, and in fact, a performance that sums up Schumacher's career. Well, he came back to race only to leave again, but the same can't be said after Felipe Massa's last race. At the end of the 2016 season, when Massa announced his retirement, it was a very emotional moment. You'd understand the sentiment if you knew how Massa started his journey. He began his journey as a reserve driver for Sauber and debuted into, you see, the Brazilian Grand Prix, his home race, had always been special for him, having won it a couple times. Even more special was the 2016 race, but unfortunately, the race did not go well for him. The tricky conditions caught him out and he crashed into the barrier right next to the start-finish straight. He climbed out of his car, waved at thousands cheering for him, and with tears in his eyes and a Brazilian flag draped around his shoulders, he trudged back to the pit lane. However, everyone cheered for him, applauding his contribution, with his family in the garage hugging him while everyone teared up. Oh, so touching. But what really was touching was the emotional tribute to Jules Bianchi. While most people didn't make it to the hospital after their accidents, Bianchi's case was different. He had an accident at the Japanese GP in the 2014 F1 season after he collided with a recovery vehicle in wet conditions on the Suzuka track. Bianchi suffered a diffuse accidental injury, which left him in a coma where he remained for 9 months. Everyone hoped he would come out of it, but tragically, he lost the battle. Bianchi raced for Marussia and was part of the Ferrari Young Driver Academy, and he was the first driver to lose his life during a Grand Prix race weekend since Ayrton Senna in May of 1990. The F1 community paid an emotional tribute to him by retiring car number 17 as a mark of respect. Also, the drivers paid their tributes by forming a huddle around their 20 helmets on the tarmac, 15 minutes before the 2015 Hungarian Grand Prix. That was really sad. Can we end it on a less sad note, talking about Hamilton's final race for Mercedes? Everyone knows how grateful Mercedes is for the gift of Hamilton, and when he was ready to leave, he made everyone's eyes teary. The race marked Hamilton's 245th Grand Prix start for the team, of which he's won 80. He started from the pole position 73 times for them, but lined up a lowly 16th for his final race in a Mercedes following his elimination in the first round of qualifying. However, Hamilton reminded everyone of how great a driver he was by running a strong race after starting on the hard tires. He successfully passed teammate George Russell on the final lap to finish. Despite finishing outside the podium place, Hamilton was invited to take part of the post-race celebrations after taking the checkered flag. As he drove back, he thanked the team for their efforts, delivering one of the most emotional speeches you have ever heard. He said, "Thank you for all the courage, the determination, and the passion for seeing me and supporting me. What started out as a leap of faith turned into a journey into the history books. We did everything together, and I'm so grateful to everyone, both here and back at the factory. From the bottom of my heart, all the best."